Hello and welcome to The Table, a podcast from Fellowship West, where we come together to connect, learn, and grow as followers of Jesus. Here at The Table, we believe that faith grows best in community, that some of the most meaningful conversations happen not just in pews or pulpits, but around tables.
It's New Year's Day, and today we have a one-off special episode where I sit down with my wife, Melissa, and we talk about New Year's resolutions and how we can practically implement those in our lives. So as we prepare to start off the new year, grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's have a conversation. Well, today's episode is a little bit different. I'm recording on the road, enjoying a little bit of a slower pace through the holidays and getting ready to kick off the new year with a topic that has been on my heart, which is that of resisting hurry and starting the year intentionally. And I'm especially excited today because for the first time ever, my wife, Melissa, is joining me on the podcast. For those of you who haven't met her yet, like I said, she's my wife, my partner in life, my partner in ministry, and someone that I get to navigate all of the chaos of family, ministry, and the holidays with. So today we're talking about how to slow down, embrace margin, and live with more intentionality without feeling like we have to do it all at once. Whether you're tired, overwhelmed, or you just need a reminder that it's okay to start the year slow, this episode is for you. And so, Melissa, welcome to the table. Why don't you start us off by just introducing us a little bit to yourself, and then we'll dig into our topic today.
Sounds good. So I am Melissa Mitchell, married to Tyler for the last 10, almost 11 years.
Yep.
Been at Fellowship West since 2015.
Yep.
So that's exciting. I volunteer primarily with students, but if my voice sounds familiar, then that means you're paying attention at the end of the services. And if it doesn't, that means that you should pay attention more at the end of services.
Yeah, why don't you give us a quick what we learned introduction?
This week, our West kids learned about, and I honestly don't know what they learned about because we recorded that 2 weeks ago.
We did, yeah. So if you attend West, then that probably gave you some flashbacks a little bit to every Sunday.
Yes, I don't have fun music, though, behind me right now.
I can do it in post.
But yes, just volunteer at the church. Been doing ministry for a long time and not new to the whole January 1st, get your whole life together, but then maybe by January 3rd, maybe later than that, but it's not.
People last until February.
Yeah, it's not all the way together anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that it is so common to come up with all of these great ambitions for life change here at the beginning of the year. And a lot of those things are good, but as we'll talk about through this episode, it's so hard to just go like 0 to 60 with a lot of these resolutions and ambitions right now in this time of year. And so what we want to talk about today is how we can practically think about the pace, the rest, how we actually live out the things, the changes that we want to see in our lives. Because that's at the end of the day, resolutions that we make around New Year's are all about changes that we want to see in our lives. And Melissa and I have actually been talking a lot about just resolutions and changes that we would like to see in our own lives over the next year, and how we can do that practically and realistically as we begin the year when this episode airs today.
I think one of the hardest things is the idea of it all has to be starting right now. And I think often what we see like in social media and just life in general is that it needs to be this like giant life change.
Sure.
And it has to be like right now and start right away. Like it can't be even a 5-year goal is fine. But if you're like, oh, this is something I want to see, it's like, I have to do it every single day. And if I fail, then I've lost the resolution. Like if you're planning to like work out every day and you miss it. And honestly, I think like working out is a really good example because I think that's a lot of people's goals. And it's all around. Like you walk into Target or TJ Maxx or Walmart, and by the time the holidays are over, they already have all of their workout gear in the front and all of the like weights and all of that. But
if you do happen to go to a gym, it's probably going to be very full for the next couple weeks.
Yes, until it slows down. But with working out specifically, a lot of people have never done it in their lives. Or it's like, I'm going to do this thing every single day that I've never had any sort of discipline for. And so you're basically setting yourself up to fail.
Yeah. Yeah. We were just talking to my sister-in-law actually moments ago about like reading resolutions. And I mentioned that like I know of some people who have taken on the challenge to try to read 52 books in the year, meaning that you're reading a book every week. And that is good on you if you can do it, but like that's a pretty ambitious initiative to set forth.
Especially if it's not a children's book.
Yes.
So you can easily read 52.
That's true. We've probably read 52 books in the last year, but a lot of them are like
repeats.
Yeah. Or like little golden books or things like that.
Those are longer, but yes.
Yeah.
But yes. And that's another thing. You can almost every goal you could make work as like, I'm going to read 52 books, but not being specific in the book. So if you wanted to really...
Yeah, you could cheat it a little bit.
If you really want to cheat your goal, you could do it. But I think, yeah, there's just a lot of pressure for whatever reason, which I think I read an article that it was like, it started because I don't know. I can't remember if it was like just because of consumerism or what, because it doesn't make sense to start goals in the middle of winter.
Right.
At all. Because it's cold and I don't want to go work out. And I also don't want to eat salads when it's negative 20 degrees out. I want to be warm. But for whatever reason, society has really pushed this January 1st starts and everything's supposed to magically get wiped clean and be better, which is really also very dismissive of, I think there's some things like you want to leave from the last year and grow and learn.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't mean that the things that you went through in the last year just go away because the clock struck midnight.
Right. Let's dig into this a little bit more. What is it about the new year, about January, that you feel like you mentioned that pressure of the new year and some of the self-improvement initiatives that we strive for. What is it about the new year that you think kind of brings some of that pressure?
New year, new me. I don't know. I mean, it's everywhere where, the Today Show covers it. I think all news covers it. I just think about them because they always have segments of like products you need to buy for XYZ goals, or there's all the gimmicks. I mean, it's almost getting to the point of it's like a Black Friday sale with a lot of companies of here's hydration to get into, or like here's your book subscription.
Sure.
Make sure you're journaling, make sure you're doing all of these things. And it's interesting because it's all of the same goals basically for all people, but not all people are the same and not all goals should be the same for everyone. So I could not tell you when it started, but I feel like there's always been a pressure for like New Year's resolutions. Mm-hmm. And I think it just has gotten worse and worse, like with social media and with different things of, here's this pressure, here's what you need to do. And I think it's the idea that there's a new year and a new start. So the year can be whatever you want it to be.
Sure.
Which is nice. But instead of seeing it as you can create a new year or you can create new habits for yourself, it almost, instead of being freeing, has just become this big, big pressure of you have to make this year perfect. I think that's what it comes down to.
I like that.
Is instead of you have the freedom, like you have a blank canvas to do whatever you want,
mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter. Like you give a kid a piece of paper and they're going to just draw whatever they want. Like our son Carter is 3. And if I give him a piece of paper, he tells me that he drew this beautiful picture of, whatever, a lion in the forest. And I look at it and it's just scribbles everywhere. Sure. But to him, it is beautiful and it's amazing. And that's what our new year should be. But instead, we get the blank piece of paper and we're like, if I make one mistake, if I draw outside of the line, if I color outside of the line, then it's trash and I need to throw it away.
And I think that, like, I totally agree with you. And I think that fact sometimes leads us to like a paralysis of decisions, right? Where like, instead of just kind of taking the year for what it is mm-hmm. and making it something beautiful, making it like just seeking God day after day and allowing him to lead us through the year, we spend all of December and sometimes even into January trying to like perfectly craft exactly what our next year ought to look like. And sometimes like that means that like we're not beginning any of these these changes that we want to implement until like we feel like we have everything put together. Or sometimes we just never implement them at all because we're like, oh, I'll wait until the next like clear start point. And so like, yeah, that can almost lead us to like a paralysis of like, there's so much pressure to get it right. There's so much pressure to not miss a day, not have a slip up and eat a cookie when you had said you weren't going to eat sugar in 2026 or whatever it may be. That yeah, we just kind of freeze up. And like we said, like a lot of the times the changes that we're talking about around New Year's are good things. It's good to read. It's good to work out. It's good to eat healthy. It's good to whatever. Most of the things that we put on our resolutions are good, positive changes that would benefit us physically, emotionally, spiritually to implement in our lives. But how do we go about that in a way that is actually practical and sustainable instead of just kind of dreaming up all of these like huge, extravagant goals and then not actually doing anything to follow through with it? Or like you said at the beginning, following through for a little bit and then just kind of falling off and being like, well, what a waste. Let's throw this piece of paper away.
Yeah. When you were talking about one of your points that I just blanked on, but it made me think about how like ultimately a lot of our goals are a control thing. Oh, it's when you're talking about like pursuing Christ with our goals, because especially as Christians, that's definitely a goal. I think everyone is like, if you ask a Christian what their goal is, it's going to be to grow closer to Christ and to know him more every single year, which that is
absolutely
easy to guess.
That's definitely should be a goal of ours every single year.
That is what we are doing. But a lot of times our goals, when you were talking, it just made me think of all of these goals are to put us into control.
Sure.
And I think part of the new year and also what's scary is there's so much unknown. Like you don't know what the year is going to hold.
Yeah.
And ultimately these goals, honestly, like if we can control like our workouts, if we can control how much we're reading, if we control what we're reading, if we can control what we're eating, how often, it feels like our lives are more in our own hands instead of God's hands. And I think there's some of that. That's what that pressure is. It's like, well, if I set this goal and I follow it through, then I'm in control of this. But then when we fail our goals, that just further shows like we're not in control of our lives. And we cannot be in control of our lives. Like God is who we need to submit to and put everything through that lens of how can God better me, not how can God better me? How can this situation bring me closer to God? Or how can God use this situation to bring me closer to him? And with our New Year's goals and resolutions, it's a lot of times just about us. And even when we say it is like, I want to go closer to God, like sometimes it's even just to make us feel better.
Right.
Because if we truly were saying, okay, God, you have my ear, then we would be okay with whatever he throws at us.
Sure. And also we wouldn't feel like we need to wait until January 1st to do that. And I think that's a big kicker to me with a lot of New Year's resolutions. And I'm guilty of this constantly is I think to myself like, oh, I will wait until New Year's, or I will wait until the beginning of the month, or I will wait until Monday to start whatever goals I set in place of like working out or whatever it may be. But in reality, it's like, so this episode comes out on January 1st. And so technically, if you were striving to set 365-day resolutions, you've got today to get it started, or else like per like culture's view, you failed at your New Year's resolution. But what I'm saying is like, you don't need to like, it doesn't need to be dependent on a specific start point. If you feel like there's a change that you need to make in your life, just like start implementing it. Don't wait until the next like round number.
Yeah. Well, I mean, bringing a parallel, but like it's just like when someone accepts Christ, we're
Sure,
not like
absolutely.
get your stuff together
Yeah.
and then you can accept Christ, or like once you've read your Bible 5 times in a week, then you're closer.
Sure.
Like, and I think as far as like goals go, we just decide that we need to hit the ground running. And this is trying to kind of move into the next part of what we're talking about. But like, I think we often with these goals are like 0 to 100 instead of like a soft launch, instead of like, okay, I want to grow closer to Christ this year. How can I actually do that? And if you're like, I'm going to read my Bible for 45 minutes every single day, journal for 10 minutes, and also
Pray for an hour.
Yeah.
Like,
that is just not, maybe if you
most
are,
people who do.
I know, if
Good on 'em.
you can get up at 4:30 in the morning and like that's your jam, because I do know people that do that. They like are on the treadmill and they're reading scripture and that is their jam.
Yeah.
Love that for them. I am not that way and I love sleep. And in the season that I'm in,
You also have a
With-
toddler and a baby.
yeah, with a 3-year-old and a 9-month-old, my days look a little different even than they did, 5 years ago. And so
Well, they did 9 months ago.
yeah. And so, yeah, yes, because adding someone else into the mix that needs me a little bit more changes, But I think that's the real thing is the like soft launching in of
Yeah.
here's my overall goal and this is what I want to do. Like, how can I do that? Because if you're saying, I think that's the thing is like having a goal of getting healthier in like every facet, like spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, breaking that down and then saying like, I'm going to do therapy,
Sure.
once a month. I'm going to drink water more. And then setting from that another goal of like, here's a check-in that I'm going to do. I
Mhm.
think that makes a lot more sense than I'm going to read for 20 minutes every single day. And if there's a day where life gets crazy or like you get sick, and because that's always the thing is
The number of like goals that I have put in place that have been derailed by sickness, especially working out goals.
Mhm.
I'll be in a great routine and then I'll get hit with the flu and then
Mhm.
I won't work out for a couple weeks and then I'm off the wagon.
Which again, you can start that goal at any time. And I think that's the kicker. Or for some reason, you miss a week and you're like, well, I have failed. That is it. And I don't know why that's the pressure that we put on ourselves, but it is. And just like, again, tying it back, but like, that's not how God views us. He's not like, oh man, you didn't read today, then you're less of my child.
Yeah, he's not up there with like these great balancing scales, like trying to keep
Mhm.
everything balanced and on the good side of things. Like
Mhm.
that's karma. That's not
No.
God.
No. And so I don't know where that pressure, I mean, I guess it's
It's
intrinsic
societal.
motivation
It's
and
societal.
that too. Yeah. Which I think it's good to not want to fail. But if we
Sure.
just, if we're starting by setting ourselves up for failure, and then B, when we fail, if we just quit,
Yeah.
then, quitters never win. You're never going to reach a goal.
I think one of the other struggles is the comparison game that we find ourselves playing on social media because I don't know about you, but like my algorithm recently has been just flooded with people that are talking about goals and talking
Mhm.
about like changes that they made or talking about like great things that they've been doing and doing consistently
Mhm.
and all these big things. And some of them are like really cool and things that like I would like
Mhm.
to do. And this isn't necessarily like a New Year's goal that I've seen, but Justin Whitmell Early, who the author of Habits of the Household, he just posted and was talking about, and I've read about him doing this before, but about one of his challenges for the new year, just to parents out there, is to write a letter to their
Mhm.
kids on their birthday each year, so that by the time they turn 18, they've got a bunch of letters that they'll be able to open up and just
Mhm.
kind of read about about them as they grew and
Mhm.
and your prayers for them as a parent as they grow and things like that. And I saw that earlier today actually and was thinking to myself like, oh man, like I would like to do that. I can do that for Hadley, but I've missed 3 for Carter, which I mean in the long grand scheme is not that much, but like there was a part of me that's like, well, I've kind of missed the boat because I didn't start that with Carter 3 years ago. I didn't know about that 3 years
Yeah.
ago. I didn't know about that idea. I had never heard that before. And so like, yeah, why can't I just pick that up?
Mhm.
And instead of 18 letters, he'll have 15 and that'll be okay. Because I don't think like he and Hadley are going to sit down and compare and be like, oh, I got more letters from you than.
Probably not, but they could, but it would be okay.
Yeah.
Because you can just tell him that you didn't know about it.
I just didn't know.
Or you can just write some from when he was little because,
Yeah, that's true.
you know, he won't know.
Yeah.
Podcaster people, listeners will know, but that's okay.
Yeah. And then the other thing about this time of year is, even though, like you said, like it's the dead of winter, it's a time when like nature is kind of hibernating and
Mhm.
shutting down in a lot of respects. It still feels just like insanely busy. And like we've been talking about this pressure that is like societal and kind of intrinsic. But then on top of that, like it's just busy. We're coming out of the holidays. We're getting back into the swing of
Mhm.
work. We're reestablishing family rhythms after traveling or after being on school breaks or whatever it may be. There's a lot of just kind of expectations that are placed on us from other people. There's a lot of emotional exhaustion, sometimes physical exhaustion if you've been traveling like we are, sometimes spiritual exhaustion if the holidays are hard for you because of whatever circumstances they may bring about. And so I think that sometimes like that hurriedness plays into that pressure that we feel around the New Year's and actually makes establishing some of these life changes and resolutions even harder.
I think it is really interesting because, you know, October through December is insanely busy. Like it just is. If your kids are in sports, it's like prime sports time. But there's also, you know, 3 holidays back to back to back. And then we hit January.
Yeah, more than 3, by the way.
Okay, I'm just talking about Halloween. You're right. But like I'm talking about Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Obviously.
Sorry to all of you Kwanzaa and Hanukkah people.
Yes. I'm just talking about school breaks, I guess. Halloween is not a school break, but Halloween should be a school break because teachers, you know what it's like when the kids come on the day after Halloween when it's in the middle of the week. It is insane. So you know what? That should be a break. But that's neither here nor there. But it's a really busy season. And then it's interesting, speaking of teachers, but like this is when it's the longest time in school.
Yeah.
It is so long and you are counting down the days until spring break because it is insane.
You sometimes get like a long weekend for like presidents or MLK or one of those.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
yes.
But
it just
that's
depends
barely
on the district because some districts have started to like move things around for PD, but even so, it's still like, or conferences, you'll get like Thursday, Friday off, or maybe Friday, Monday.
But still, this is a long stretch of a lot of.
It's a long stretch, and it is cold, and it is dark, and there's all these things, and so it is really interesting that we do put this pressure on because personally, and I think it's also for whatever reason, like society has made it this way, like Christmas is done. We tear it down and now it should magically be 65 degrees and we can have our smoothies and our salads and all be outside and
Nice.
magic happens in the world because the kids are playing outside. No one has a vitamin D deficiency because we're outside. Everyone's drinking water. Like there's all of this stuff. However, the sun sets at 4 p.m. It is average like 40 degrees outside. And
Max.
yeah. And like we don't need to be we need to be eating warm, comforting foods because everyone's getting sick. So we're also like all taking soup. So it really is not a good, I'm not saying you shouldn't set goals in January. I'm just saying like it's very silly that this is the mindset of society. And like obviously I've bought into it too of like Christmas is over and now everybody gets everything together.
Sure.
And everything should be this magical way, whereas again it's like the height of cold and flu season, even though it felt like it was the height of cold and flu season 2 weeks ago, but like
When you have kids in the house, it's always the height of cold.
yes, but like it's cold, everyone has runny noses, everyone is cold, we're all inside, everyone's on top of each other, like it's not the time to do all of this hurriedness of like getting to the gym, getting to the grocery store. But yet that is what we see. But I do think it's been interesting. You were talking about like your algorithm and stuff, but I've seen a lot of people in a lot of shifts saying like, I'm not going to make goals this year, or like, I'm going to do more like a mindset goal, or I'm going to do just like overall, instead of being like, here are all of these things that I need to get done by tomorrow, by January 1st. Instead saying like, I'm going to enjoy this cold season of slowing down, maybe reading, maybe picking up a new hobby, having candles lit in the fireplace on, and just like soaking it up. And I think that's what we should be doing. I think oftentimes we don't truly rest, and we definitely like, we say we rest in the Lord, but we don't really.
For sure.
And so this season where it was a whirlwind, and there was, 27 dress up days if your kids are in school, and everyday Spirit Day, and everyone's had copious amounts of candy and hot chocolate, and you're just eating snack foods, whatever. Like, we're just all living our best lives. But now we have to get back to reality. And instead of hitting the ground running, I think we should have some restful rhythms that we're starting to implement, and just saying like, hey, what are some rhythms that I could do to make my life easier? This is so silly, and this is not even a resolution, but like a rhythm in our house that has made my life so much easier is having muffins made every week.
Sure.
And maybe that sounds really ridiculous, but for me, if I have muffins ready, then if it's a colder morning or whatever, or the kids want something else for breakfast, I can throw a muffin at them. Not literally, but I can give them a muffin.
Sometimes we may want to.
But I can give them a muffin.
Carter would actually love that.
Carter would think that was fun. Hadley loves food, so she would be into it, but could not catch it.
Yeah.
But I can hand them a muffin, and I can have a minute to finish prepping whatever else I'm having for breakfast, or getting stuff on the table or whatever. But that is something that I can do that makes my life easier. And it's a rhythm. Like, every Monday, Carter and I make muffins, and then we'll eat on those. And then usually we'll do another batch because we eat a lot of muffins because they're a great snack. But like, that's something to put into place. Or like, we were talking yesterday about, like, this is a season where reading my Bible has been really tricky, navigating, like, actually just like sitting down. And so for me, I feel like when I leave my room, everyone knows that I'm awake. And so they want to be awake. So I was like, I need to just move my Bible study into my room. And that can be a new rhythm that maybe will give me a little bit more just alone time to set myself up to be in a better headspace for the whole family.
Right.
Because when you start your day hitting the ground running with like 50 questions coming at you, then it's easy to feel overwhelmed and anxious. And so choosing that to slow down, choosing rest, but not choosing to sleep in, but choosing to like rest in the morning, give everything to God, and even just doing it in a space that feels restful.
Right.
Again, I'm going to have to figure out and navigate, because I don't want it to be for this where you're like reading your Bible falling asleep, or praying and falling asleep. However, in this season, I feel like it would be easier to bring those things to myself in the morning, so then I don't have an excuse. Like, it's literally right there.
Sure. Yeah. And kind of, piggybacking off of what you're saying, let me be clear. Like, we're not opposed to resolutions or making like setting goals and making changes in your life, even if it is around New Year's. Like, we're definitely not opposed to it. And I encourage that. But what we're getting at, and you're just really like all over it there, is doing it in a practical way that involves slowing down in the midst of the hurriedness that society likes to bring us into. And that slowing down, that resting in the Lord, is actually really biblical. It's, even like, go back to the 10 Commandments, right? God commanded a Sabbath. He commanded people to honor the Sabbath, to rest. And even bring it back even further, God himself created the world in 6 days and then rested on the seventh, right? Not because he was exhausted and needed a break, but as an example for us of the benefit of the spiritual discipline of Sabbath. And so like this practice of slowing down, of resting in the Lord is very biblical. I think of one of my favorite short little verses is Psalm 46:10 that says, "Be still and know that I am God." Be still, to rest, to silence yourself, to quiet the loudness of the world around you, to escape the hurriedness of culture and rest in the Lord. And we look at like the example of Christ, and he lived a life, from what we can tell in the Gospels, of an unhurried pace. I can't remember who said it, but one of the things that Matt picked up that he echoes to us a lot is to walk slowly among the flock on Sundays and Wednesdays, to rather than allowing ourselves to get caught up in the busyness of like running a service on a Sunday, to be intentional to walk slowly among the flock, to see the people for who they are, to walk slowly among them and not get so caught up in our tasks. And I think that we can apply that to our lives outside of the worship center as well, where we just walk slowly through the day, and we try to emphasize an unhurried pace and find ways to rest in the Lord, and find practical ways to implement rhythms into our lives that can help us make those changes. And I think that's a key, is instead of making a resolution, establish rhythms. And that's been something that like we've been really into the last year or so, is talking about rhythms and ways to change the kind of culture of our home for the long-term big scale changes that we want to see in our lives, in our kids' lives, in the culture of our home. And so establishing those rhythms, I think, is really good, because also like a resolution, if you miss it, then you feel like you've broken it and you've failed. A rhythm, if there is a little bit of a lapse, you just get back in rhythm. It's not that big of a deal. And so that eases up the pressure as well.
I think setting systems and rhythms are just really important, because it's not like what can make my life easier, but in some ways it is what can make my life, how can I live my life with more ease? I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's very countercultural to not live based off of a list of accomplishing things. And that's been something like, I think like a lot of people in general struggle with. I know it's like a joke about millennial people is like, we like really love a good to-do list and we love getting stuff checked off. And so like I struggle with that too, is like, I didn't get the laundry put away today, but I sat down and I played. And it's a balance. Like, obviously I don't want my house to be like a pigsty or whatever, but I do want to have enough space where like, if someone needs to come to my house because they need just a minute, or they need me to watch their kids, or like whatever, I have margin and I have rhythms in place where that doesn't feel so overwhelming. Like it doesn't feel anxiety inducing. And that's very hard, because people would say like, no, that's your time, that's your space. Like, and in some aspects, that's just what Christ has called us to do, is to love other people. And so
it's hospitality and generosity.
Yeah. And how do we do that? And knowing that it's not going to look perfect, and it's not going to be like, my house is never fully clean. There are going to be toys out everywhere. Yeah. But you know what? If someone needs to pop by and they need prayer, come on, please give me a warning. But there's some of that aspects, and there's a couple of like good books about like finding rhythms. I laugh because there's one I started during COVID, and I felt it's called Rhythms of Renewal by Rebecca Lyons. And it was the first chapter, I think, is about technology. And I felt like I couldn't do like a good break from technology at that time, because we were all working from home and Zooming and all of the things. But
another really good one is Ruthless Elimination of Hurry.
Yes. But that's just where we're at, is like how many societies, like how many things can you fit in your schedule? How many nights a week can you not be at home? How many sports can your kids be in? How many extracurriculars are they in? how many workout classes have you attended? How many, you know, like it goes on and on and on. And we can all think about all of the things that we're supposed to do as a society and how we're supposed to look and how we're supposed to think and talk and all of these things. But Christ says, I'm sufficient.
Yeah.
And so that balance.
To some degree, what we're talking about is identity, right?
Mhm.
We're like, do we find our identity in the approval of our fellow man
Mhm.
based on the accomplishments that we have made, based on the accolades that we have gained?
Mhm.
Or do we find our identity in Jesus,
Mhm.
in the grace that he has poured out on us? His grace, is his grace sufficient for us? Because if we find our identity in Christ, then pleasing him is all that really matters. And not keeping up with the Joneses and not playing that comparison game and looking at the influencers on social media and thinking about how we wish that our house looked more aesthetic like theirs. But instead of looking back at your day and thinking, oh, here are the things I didn't accomplish, we can look back at our day and think, okay, here are the ways that God showed up in my day. Here are the things that I did that honored God. Here are the good conversations that I had with my kids. Here are the ways that I served my neighbors and my friends and my family. And I think that those are types of rhythms and mindsets that really are revolutionary when it comes to rethinking the changes that we want to put in our lives.
I think that's just really what it comes down to. Like, we're not saying don't set resolutions, be lazy, and just live your life however you want. But it's because I think God has asked us to take care of our bodies, and I think God has asked us to take care of our homes. And I know that God has asked us to do those things.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, just filtering everything through, how does this bring God glory? Or how can I better my relationship with Christ through these things?
Sure.
And so, like, wanting to be in your best physical health that you can because you want to be able to, like, be around to play with your kids. Like, that's a simple, easy goal. Or maybe you feel called to go on a mission trip and it is going to be hard and a lot of walking or building or whatever. And so you're like, okay, my goal is I want to be in my best physical health so I can help others, whether that is on the mission field, whether it's like, I just need to be able to, like, help someone from their car, whatever that looks like. And, I need to be in my best health spiritually because that's what we should do. Mentally, it's important to be at our best because the world is hard and there's a lot going on, but we can't help others if we're not in a place where we're healthy ourselves. And we can't fully grasp who God is if we're not in a good mental space either. And so all of these things are very important, but it's setting those goals with the lens of Christ instead of the lens of others. And I think, like you just said, that's where it gets messed up is, okay, well, I'm supposed to have these goals.
Right.
Specifically, I need to, like, do X, Y, and Z because that's what Joey told me on Instagram or whatever, or that's what the person on the news said was the trending goal this year. So I need to do that, and I need to spend all this money to get it. When in reality, it is, are you loving the people that Christ has given you well? And are you loving him well?
Right.
And what does that look like for you?
Yeah. I think of when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandments were, his response was, the first is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Within these two lie all the of the prophets. And so what Jesus is saying there is that the most important things in your life are your relationship with God and your relationship with others. It's not about your success. It's not about your possessions. It's not about your physical appearance, even though physical health is important for a lot of the reasons you were just talking about. It's about relationships. And so prioritizing your relationship with God first and foremost over anything else, and then prioritizing relationships with others is very important. And I think that any goal and life change that you're wanting to make, you can apply those towards relationships in some way. And thinking of that helps to reframe the motivation behind the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I have a goal of being more physically fit and it's just aesthetic, I just want to look better, that's going to be a lot harder for me to maintain. If my goal behind getting healthier physically is so that I can, for a long time, be able to play with my kids and carry them and run with them and all of these things long into my life, that I'm putting more motivation behind the relationships instead of just on selfish things.
Well, and same with just like talking about mental health, because I feel like that gets forgotten. Not forgotten. It's just not talked about as much. But like, we're called to live in community, and Christ wants us to live in community. Like, the church is so good for that. And if you're not in a small group, here's the plug to get plugged into a small group.
Absolutely.
But
if you're at West, hit me up. I'd be happy to help you find something.
Yeah, start the new year right with some people.
But it's a rhythm, not a resolution.
It is a rhythm because there are some weeks that you are not going to feel like going to church, or you're not going to feel like going to small group, but it's in the routine. So you're going to do it. And I will guarantee you that you will not leave going, man, I really wish I wouldn't have gone tonight, because I've never thought that when I've left a small group. But back to like being mentally healthy, when others are walking through things, you need to be mentally healthy to help them.
Sure.
And that includes processing your own stuff, but also being able to be in a space where you can help others process. And that doesn't mean like everybody is going to have terrible things. I just know in our church, we've had a lot of people walk through a lot of hard things, and all of them would say they couldn't do it alone. And so having people that are in a space mentally and spiritually and physically, because, bringing people meals, you got to be physically healthy to carry the casserole dishes up the steps. Yeah. But, all of these things lend towards loving on others. And so being in a space where you're able to do that. And so this is my whatever plug, but if you've been wrestling with some things, this is a silly, not a resolution, but you've been struggling mentally with things and thinking like, I don't want to tell anyone, or I'm worried about getting help. Like, if you're in a small group, reach out to someone in your small group. If you're not, reach out to a pastor, reach out to a trusted friend, just because that's something that I think is really important, and not a silly goal or silly resolution, but also is a very healthy rhythm that will help you in the long run, which is ultimately all of these goals. It's not a quick fix for anything. And that's when we come to setting goals, like, it can't be a quick fix. The goal is to be more like Christ. If you're a Christian, that is the ultimate goal. So every year, every month, every day, what are the small steps we can take to getting that way?
Yeah. I think another thing that is really helpful in sustainability when it comes to our rhythms and the goals we set at any point is accountability. Having, like you said, this kind of piggybacks on community, but like having people in your life that know what you're striving for, that know what rhythms you're trying to put in place, that are going alongside you with it. You're doing these goals in community. Having like when it comes to physical fitness, like for me personally, I am much more consistent when I have something that I am prepping for. A couple years or last year, I ran a 10K at the beginning of December. And so even as it started getting cold through November, like I was still very consistent in getting out and running 4 or 5 times a week. And I was able to do that. It was the longest distance I've ever ran. But I had a specific race that I was preparing for. And that helped me immensely to stay motivated to do that. And that's a form of accountability. In the same way, I think that we're talking about like mental health goals or spiritual health goals, having someone that is trusted in your life, that you're going alongside with, that you can strive for these goals together is so beneficial. Or even if it's reading a certain number of books throughout the year, get a couple people to do that with you, and then talk about what you're reading and what you're learning and like what you're enjoying and what you haven't enjoyed and all of those things. Like that's so helpful in sustaining the rhythms that you're trying to put in place.
Yeah. And I think we've talked about physical goals a lot, but it's just that's an easy one to like specifically. That's something you can see, and it's something typically, or you can feel or whatever. Mental and spiritual goals often take a lot longer, and it's not a checkbox.
Yeah.
You know, like we can say, like, I mean, you can make it a checkbox of I'm going to read my Bible for 15 minutes every day. However, the growth that comes from that and
There's
like
not a
the
whole lot of spiritual
relationship
transformation in saying like, okay, cool, did it. Now go about my day.
Correct. So that's why that's why it's easier to be like, here are goals that are easily attained, which I think is why sometimes like our spiritual goals are the first ones to go,
Sure.
like with Bible reading or whatever. Or it's easy to fall off the track because you're not, I mean, if you're setting the goal and then like coloring in a chart or something, then you can see it. But, you know, just like with any relationship, you can look back and say, oh, me and this person are a lot closer. But I could not look and say, like, with you, I'm not going to say, oh my goodness, on December 3rd, 2014 is when I felt like we'd really reached 90% of friendship. You know, like you don't do that.
We were engaged. So.
I know, but I just mean like that is so bizarre. So we can't do that with God either of like, okay, after reading my Bible for 150 days, I'm really feeling like I've peaked with my relationship with Christ because plot twist, we will never peak.
Right.
Or if you do peak and then dive down, that's a different podcast episode.
Sure.
But I think sometimes that's what's tricky. And so again, having that community and accountability where people can speak life into you and say like, hey, I've noticed maybe a change in you and you haven't, I can tell that maybe have you been reading?
Right.
Or, hey, I've been noticing like you're a lot less angry or you're a lot more patient or all of these things, because sometimes those are things we can't see in ourselves. And again, you can't track your own patience or your own, I mean, you might be able to see it, but you can't track your own like relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
On a growth chart.
Definitely. At the end of the day, I mean, there's tons of different articles and sources out there that talk about like how to set good goals, talk about like SMART goals and things like that. Goal. And so we're not going to dig into all of that. What we wanted to do today, and I hope that through our conversation, you've kind of gleaned this. We want to remind you that whatever goals you may be setting, whatever rhythms you're looking to establish, to approach them in a way that is practical, that is sustainable, to approach them slowly and not just trying to hit the ground running 0 to 60, to give yourself margin, to give yourself grace, to give yourself rest. Enter the new year in a slow way, in a way that allows you to be able to enjoy your days, that allows you to be able to enjoy the changes that are happening in your life, the ways that God is moving, the ways that God is leading you and guiding you, trusting that He is in charge, that He is sovereign, that He is for you. And I think that in doing so, that really can help take what is often a really busy and stressful and pressure-filled season and make it more enjoyable, make it more God honoring, and hopefully help you establish some rhythms in your life that give you more margin to focus on your relationship with Christ and your relationship with others.
And ones that are actually lasting instead of, a flash in a pan.
Right. The best changes that happen in your lives are ones that you're still implementing years down the road, as opposed to, these like
get rich quick goals.
The trend goals that kind of ebb and flow and fade as time goes on. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today at the table. It's been really fun to slow down and talk through what it looks like to start the year intentionally and share some of our own rhythms and struggles along the way. Melissa, thank you for being here for your very first time on the table. We'll have you back at some point, and I've loved having your perspective, your thoughts on margin and rest and living with intention. They're always so encouraging. And to our listeners, whatever pace you're starting the year at, remember that God meets us where we are. You don't have to rush to be faithful. You don't have to do it all perfectly. Small, intentional steps with grace and awareness of God's presence are more than enough. So we'll see you next week for another conversation at the table. And until then, take a breath, enjoy the moment, and give yourself a little space to start the year well.
Thank you for joining us today at the table. We hope this conversation has been meaningful to you and that you feel encouraged in your journey of faith. If you'd like to stay connected, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And be sure to join us in person. For more information about Sunday service times and locations, head to our website, fellowshipwest.com. If something from today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a friend or leave us a review because everyone has a seat at the table. Until next time, remember, you are loved and there's always a place for you here. Take care and we'll see you again soon.